Hey everyone, welcome to the third episode of Stormcrows TV, the channel where two lit chicks discuss all things reading and writing. However, due to unfortunate and almost unbelievable misfortunes, you get one lit chick today. I'm Emily Sloan. And today is less of a discussion and more like a solo review, because Allegra and we had a discussion recorded, and I was literally about to process and upload it to YouTube when, due to tropical depression and Melda, I lost power. And long story short, that video is now a corrupted file that can no longer be opened. So that was fun. I may have cried, but it is what it is. So that's why the video is late, and I am super sorry, very sorry. Hopefully I can post a newly edited discussion about episode 2 of A Discovery of Witches very soon, but in the meantime, I'll just give you a quick rundown. So we start in Venice, and we are immediately introduced to Juliet, a vampire and probable part-time model. I mean, I can really only assume that last bit based on the everything about her. She's a 10, if I've ever seen one. Anyway, so Juliet is minding her own business, staring off into the Venetian sunset while we are being serenaded by a very lovely Lewis Carroll-inspired song, White Rabbit. Definitely should check it out if you haven't heard it, it's very interesting. And while we probably could have been content to watch this drop-dead gorgeous vampire sip her tea, apparently the writers, for whatever reason, saw fit to spice shit up. And so we cut to a scene where she lures a perfectly decent-looking French tourist, who just so happens to be named Mathieu, not Matthew, for those with less discerning ears, to a side street to be loved on, and then eaten. The eaten is not a euphemism, he was literally eaten. And if you're wondering if that might have something to do with Matthew Claremont, congratulations. You've taken a literature course at some point in your life. Also, let this be a lesson to us all. If you see a woman who is, by all accounts, a 10 out of 10, and she seems to want to inspect your equipment, even though there's really nothing that special about you or it, then more than likely she's gonna eat you 9 times out of 10. But maybe you'll die happy? Allegra seems to think so. Anyway, we never do get any clarification on this point other than a couple more mentions later on that she was taught to crave Matthew. And that's a whole nother can of worms that we'll unpack just as soon as Allegra and I figure out what the hell that actually means. More interestingly, though, this introduces us to a couple more vampires, and is the first time that vampire politics operate at a more Westeros or Game of Thrones-like level of intrigue, and to be completely honest, is something I really hope they delve into more going forward, because damn, that's a whole lot of interesting. Fast forward to opening narration, Matthew telling us the world was awesome before the supernatural creatures started dying, and now we find he's left Oxford because he's craving a witch. For some reason, because she's super interesting. And this is where we meet Hamish. Hamish is a demon with James Corden-like charm, and though we guess this can mean anything, because, I mean, we can assume vampires in this universe operate very much like vampires in most other universes, except for Twilight. I mean, these ones don't sparkle. And witches operate like witches. We don't actually know what it means to be a demon. These ones don't have horns or a tail or, like, evil, you know? But for whatever reason, they are considered to matter less than the other two races, except for Hamish, who is the London ruling sort of exception. But we don't know why that is either. All we really know for sure is that demons are also suffering, but instead of losing powers or not being able to breed more demons like vampires and witches have, they're going mad and killing themselves. And it's really at this point that I have to hit pause, because why are we not focusing on that story? Honestly, and Allegra and I both very much agree on this point. We would much rather watch a show that follows Hamish and Matthew as they embark on a forbidden friendship and have their demon vampire shenanigans, while also trying to figure out what's going on. And, I mean, to be fair and a little mean, their love story is a lot more believable. And anyway, meanwhile at Oxford, Diana finally meets Knox, our resident antagonist and actual comic book villain. I say this mostly because he really sucks at what he does. In the last episode, Allegra and I wondered if perhaps he was in power because maybe he was a long-lived witch and everyone was conveniently either blind or used to him being in control. But no, apparently this guy, right here, is meant to be the same age as Diana's mother. And that's just... Alright, so math and mind-boggling confusion aside, this is the only reason he gets Diana to meet with him for tea. And honestly, he may have played the I knew your mom card way too soon because, guys, seriously, I cannot say this enough. He sucks at this. His pitch to get Diana to give him the Ashmole manuscript is literally, help me do this thing so we can commit vampire genocide. Yeah, genocide. I'm not exaggerating. Because in his mind, Knox believes witches created vampires. Which, look, I'm not even going to touch that right now, but apparently this means he has every right to destroy them, because that makes sense. I don't even know. Wisely, Diana is not down with genocide. Probably one of the first decisions she's made that I agree 100% with, and she realizes that maybe it is better to trust the vampire after all, because he might try to eat her, but at least he isn't going to wipe out all the witches to sate his hunger, so there is that. You always have to look on the bright side. And Jillian, her only friend, because Diana still has shown no signs of being capable of making any outside of the country, she's hella confused. I don't know why, because I guess blind loyalty to the Coven and to Knox makes sense, even with mass vampire murder on the table. And obviously this means she's in cahoots with the old dude, which Diana finds out later when she walks in on them, much to her disappointment, and she storms off. She leaves her only friend in the entire world, as far as we know, alone with this guy who just casually talks about killing other people. I mean, think about that. And I'm beginning to see why Diana doesn't have many, or any, friends. And because she didn't stay to try to talk sense into the dumb witch, more than likely that cliche seed of doubt that Knox planted in her head, the one about Diana achieving all the accolades and career success because of secret magic, is definitely going to become a huge frickin' tree later on down the road. Oh yeah, because surprise, Mary Sue Diana, she's actually very powerful, who'd have thought? Well, at least it seems so after she broke a window at Knox after pushing him out of her head. Yep, that's exactly what happened. I don't know. I really can't get behind Knox jumping straight to mind control in episode 2, because I feel like it wasted him as a villain. There's no complexity. Imagine how much more interesting it had been if he had lied to Diana, told her he needed the book for some charitable reason, only to stab her in the back later. That would have been interesting. But no. Instead, he gave her every reason, and then some, to put him in the, well, he's definitely a bad guy column. To this end, Satu was handled much better, because despite being obviously evil, we don't know her motivations yet. Why is she evil? Why did she join Knox? There's still some mystery there. And guys, that's a good thing. I don't know, maybe the writers don't trust us with mystery in terms of Knox, but I really wish they did. And finally, Matthew and Diana. I've got to say, episode 2 did a lot better in terms of chemistry between them, at least better than the pilot. It wasn't as interesting to watch as Hamish and Matthew, or even Venetian Vampire Squad, but I didn't feel like it was watching Matthew Good act off a lump of clay. And to that point, I do feel like I owe Teresa Palmer an apology, because in the last episode, I really critiqued her acting. But after this one, I really do believe she's doing the best she can with what she has. Unfortunately, what she has is a whiny, borderline sociopathic woman who is both hyper-intelligent according to plot, and yet really extremely clueless based on everything we see. It's kind of a weird combination. But between Allegra and I, we actually do agree that one of the best scenes in the show was when the two of them were in the garden at Oxford, and Matthew explains how empty the world will be without magical creatures, and how time is fleeting to him. And it's really just this beautiful moment, and it casts a new light on how we viewed the episode. And I say this because one of our complaints before, well, at least in the pilot, was how empty the world seemed. Oxford had few people. I mean, we made a joke about how they had 5 students total. And we learn in this episode they were on break, but even then it seemed overly empty. And Venice itself was not really as crowded as it should have been. But now, we really have to wonder if this was done on purpose. And if it was, great job to the crew on that one, because it puts everything in a very stark, very depressing perspective. It makes it very intriguing, and I'd like to see where they go with that. And so overall, it's fair to say that episode 2 was much stronger than the pilot. It still has more Twilight similarities than I'd like, but what can you do? We are introduced to interesting characters in Hamish and the Venetian Squad, and we get a glimpse into demon suicides and the vampire virility issue. And Matthew Good really, really, really shines, guys. But unfortunately, that does not take away from the weak points of the episode, and those are Knox and Diana. I really hope in episode 3 they've toned him down and they flesh her out, because, well, while the episode was solid as a whole, the glaring issues with them make it hard to really focus on that. So, with that said, Allegra and I will of course be reviewing episode 3 of A Discovery of Witches. Let us know what you thought of episode 2, and maybe share your thoughts on episode 3 before we review it. It would be fun to approach it with different perspectives and opinions before we really delve into it. Also, be sure to check out our co-written book, Broken Wings, available wherever ebooks are sold. And as always, don't forget to click like and subscribe, follow us on Twitter, and have an amazing day.